also not somehow, should I say, I keep saying it's not every expressions of discontent that you latch onto, right? I mean, who doesn't know there's been COVID? Everybody knows that the economy had been challenging for most countries. But the way you respond to some of these concerns make it very difficult for people to take on. I mean, I see snippets of it on my own wall. Anytime I put something, I like
the comments
that people make. So I knew it was just a matter of time that some people would channel their grievances in probably uncharted waters. And then there we saw a hashtag which unfortunately was not well responded to, and then led to what we are seeing. The point I'm making simply is that there are many times people fall on hardships in it. I mean, there are still moments in every country's life, but it looks as if the responses that are coming to some of these concerns is the reason that people are quite agitated. Could have been easily, deflected by saying, well, we'll be fixing it, we'll try to do this. But truth be told, there are people going through a lot of turmoil.
We'll come back to the responses to the various hashtags that have been created, but then Richard, your initial comments.
Karen, thank you. Good evening to your listeners and to my brother. Fix the country. This is 5 years late. If the organizers, I'm not sure how this thing all evolved. I understood there was a comment that originated with some, and so really, it's not sure. I'm not sure who all are advancing it. If it's, but somehow you get a sense that it's Ghanaians who are promoting and are making this request. But in my view, if you ask me, it's 5 years late, in a sense that the president said about us fixing this country from day one when he accepted the role and was inaugurated into that office. He called on us to be citizens. And in that call, the idea was, let's fix our country together. So if in 2021, maybe in May, people are coming to embrace that concept, I say more grace to our elbows. But the context of it must not be someone fix our country, but the context must be we must fix our country. Let's fix our country.
Well, don't you think maybe it's because of the promises that were made that they are not seeing it being fulfilled?
I'm not sure. Well, let's take those promises aside, but let's just, in actual fact, understand the premise for a situation like that to arise. And so when individuals are saying, fix the country, my question is, who are you telling to fix the country? Obviously, they're telling government to fix the country. But in the history of the world, no government, okay, even if you have a perverse understanding of government, because really government is all of us. We are government. And more especially in a democracy where you say it's a government of the people, by the people, for the people, then really you are confusing the issue when you say somebody fix our country. So we need to contextualize this properly and have a broader conversation. So this is not a political issue, but an information, honest national discussion issue of how we fix our country. I've seen retorts to fix the country to fix yourself, which you may have challenges with, but the context is where the confusion arises. Because if we have a government, and that government was brought about by us, and that government must fix the country with our partnership, and the leader of that government called on us at the outset of his government that let's fix this country together. And then in 5 years in, people are saying fix the country, then for me, it is a situation where we need to have a proper dialogue about it, take away politics, and look at the issues as is, and ask one, why are we here? What are the challenges we face? And how can we address those challenges? Because really, if tomorrow the government, because must fix the country, increases tax by any amount, what are we going to be able to pay those taxes? Of course, in the context of this issue is the increment of some new taxes that is kicked in. And people are canvassing on that as evidence of hardship. But how does government fix the country? You understand? So I think that the general situation we must get right is that the commitment of the government of the day, if it's not seen as fixing the problem, then the problems faced by the country, then we have a legitimate call to make. But we just have a situation where government is doing all it can under extreme circumstances to fix the country, but somehow people, and I don't want to say this, but I think that they have taken the discussion out of context and positioned it in a political context to want to exert some outcome to say that somebody must fix our country. I say that is misguided, because no government, by that I mean pointing at a particular leader and say he must fix the country. It's never happened anywhere. It is the people who fix their country, and I think that the proper description is that let's fix our country, in which case you will absorb those who have a reason to say that fix yourself will also be included, and all of us now will fix our country by fixing ourselves. And then the further discussion will have to do about what is the country? Is a country the people, or the country is the road? Is a country the environment, really? What is a country? Are we the people the country? If we the people are the country, what is wrong with us? That needs to be fixed. So in that sense, fix the country, when you understand the country to mean we the people, then fix the country means fix the people. And how would you expect a president to fix the people? In other words, you're saying the people must fix themselves. So we need to situate the hashtag or the campaign properly, and then have a broader conversation about what are we faced with and how can we address it. Because there is no such thing as President Akufo-Addo as the government. We are the government, and we must fix our country together. And I think that if we properly text the discussion, I think we'll begin to make progress as to how we fix Ghana and fix it together.
But when you say people are looking at this from a political angle, don't you think it's perhaps because of the promises that this particular government might have made at the beginning of its term? That's why people are trying to hold it to account. Don't you think that's the reason why people are demanding answers and results to the problems that you're facing? Of
course. I mean, and that is the challenge with the situation. And the question is, in the present environment, okay, take anybody and make them the president of this country and find out what they will be doing right now to fix the country. That question they're talking about came about because, one, we have been hampered by COVID-19. The development of this country has been hampered from 2020 with COVID-19, and the impact of this is across board. Say, for example, countries that we do business with, countries that we engage with in any number of ways to fix our country, they have been devastated as well. So you realize that there's a global situation that is affecting every country. And I was doing some search, and if you realize this fix the country thing, I think it's not only originating in Ghana, it's all over the place. There is difficulty across the world. And so in this difficult moment, the right attitude to have is not to point finger at any one person, because that person doesn't have a magical one given the global circumstance, but it is rather a look and a dig within ourselves to say, what are we made of? Such that even in this difficult moment, we can find a way to fix our country.
So you don't think it's the right time to hold the government to account for what it has said it will do because of COVID?
Not exactly. Of course, you can hold the government accountable. But what they are saying now goes beyond even saying that do A, B, C, D because you have promised. The balance of what this government promised, and if you look in their 2020 manifesto, the percentage deliveries, we've had conversations about that. But what we need fundamentally in the present moment to fix our country goes beyond the promises of a political party that has been delivered. Because really, if you're asking for that, there is evidence of delivery on those. What is being asked now is not that. It is to say that even in this difficult moment, there is something government ought to be doing that is not doing. Okay? But that is not true. The difficulty that has come about, like when all of us were to be locked down in 2020, right? The challenges that was foreseen, for which reason we had to be locked down, if we don't, there will be infestations across this country. So you need to lock down. Nobody foresaw that. But then you had to do that, knowing very well that you have some commitment you must deliver. But what is overriding at the time was to save and protect lives. And so you had to do that. And we're still in the mode of protecting lives. The question I ask is that assuming this government did not fix this country by going through the process of preventing the spread of COVID, and all of us just say, oh, let's let everybody go about and do what they want to do, and COVID ravaged this country, would we be alive today advocating to fix the country? So first of all, the government took responsibility, even though it was difficult, took the challenge of fixing, in which sense protecting lives, which it has done. And we know we are not out of the woods yet, but we have seen how Ghana has managed to fend off COVID. So that is a commitment. That is a measure of fixing the country. We need to build on that going forward. And I think that it has to be collective. Because if the government says, let's shut down, let everybody wear nose masks, and people are not wearing, and the virus is spreading, that is an aspect that you can say government is not doing so. But we too must have a responsibility to play, to make sure that in fixing and protecting our lives, we are playing our role. So it's a collective thing. It cannot be that there's a government sitting somewhere and that government must fix it, and as for us, we wait for the result. No, we must fix our country. And I think the government taking leadership, we must follow and do what we must do as citizens to complement that effort.
Franklin, do you agree that Ghanaians have all too soon forgotten the sacrifices and all that government did to survive or make the economy stand firm despite the pandemic? You feel because of COVID, people shouldn't be holding the government to account, like Richard is saying?
Well, I guess it's all about engagement and proper engagement. You know, when the pandemic struck, some of the rapprochement we made to people, especially when we suggested that we could, I think there's a misalignment in that type of relationship where you communicate that, well, I'm taking care of you because of what has happened. And it almost sounded as though it was coming out of the pocket of government, you know, forgetting, first of all, that it all belonged to us. And the government kept patting itself that they got IMF money, they got World Bank money, which also boiled down to the fact that it was due to the economic prowess in terms of managing the economy well, which was in no doubt, by the way, was the reason why all these good things were coming. So at the end of the day, if people woke up and then the next thing they hear is that, well, there's going to be a litany of taxes that would have to be imposed in order to claw back some of what we thought was free, then it sets people somehow on the wrong footing. And that's why I say that the communication process should have been done properly.
Like how should it have been done?
Well, it's easy to tell people, well, listen, the times are tough. Like every economy has been devastated. But what we are doing for you now as a stopgap measure, at some point would call on you as the economy becomes okay, call on you to pay back some of.
You think that would have gone down easily?
Well, I guess, in politics, I know that in politics.
I'm just imagining. So the president should have made this communication, or
could have easily said,
fellow Ghanaians,
we are doing this, so that, and I think I must have heard something like that, but it wasn't probably. Well, I mean, I'm not, and then people are like, but this was not what you told us. You get the sense, People begin to say, well, and then you don't have any proper excuse except to say that you need to get up your loins and do this. Even the way they communicated
fix yourself.
That's funny. One of the major statements, while communicating that we're going to increase fuel prices, you see a line that says, but it's the lowest ever since BP's administration. It sort of puts people off. Point is, you're actually increasing the thing, not rabbiting, I'm just saying that for some middle class people that I heard, they said that actually made them angry, because they said, well, you are telling us that you should contribute, but don't tell us that yours is the best ever. Fact of the matter is there's an increment. But it's just one tiny aspect of the communication issue that I'm talking about. I think, as I said, times are hard generally, everywhere. I don't see this as an isolated issue at all. I guess it got out of hand, the tweets and the hashtags got out of hand simply because of the communication.
Yeah.
But I see people also saying, and I think I associate with that while you're asking us to get up our loins and make certain contributions, you also need to watch your expenditure, your expenditure plans as well. And I think that has not necessarily gone down
with the people
as much as one would have expected. So it was a bad week for the government. It's
still trending, and they are planning on hitting the streets on May 9.
Wow. Well, I heard that too. But I guess it's good. The communication coming since the uproar and the backlash is that, well, we are fixing it, and I think, to be fair, I see instances where government is doing it best. See, for government to have spent so much on free SHS, spent so much on quite a number of things, all people are maybe asking is, we want to see something beyond all that has been spent already.
But the point for this whole campaign to somewhat be more specific, because Richard was saying that if you say fix the country, what do you mean by country? Are you talking about the roads, the economy? Do you think this campaign is not specific enough?
I guess it's specific according to how people feel. People have said fuel prices. Others have said salaries are meager. Others have said, basically, generally, things are on the rise in terms of prices. So it's compartmentalized, really. I get the sense that it's not a coordinated campaign. So there are people who feel differently. So how they feel is what they believe should be fixed. I think I've counted about 5 or 6 issues generally. And so I can't say that, it seems like a rudderless campaign, and that's more dangerous, because if it were coordinated and you had leaders who were seen like we did with Occupy and all of that, then you're able to say that there's some structure. The most dangerous, for lack of a better word, revolts are the ones that in this day and age are the ones that are quite uncoordinated. And when that happens, it's not just expressed through demonstrations. People just become respondents and say what they have to say. Initially, I thought it was even party-led, but when I saw the sort of people sharing the tax and some of the comments they were making, I said, well, government has to watch it.
So it's beyond the politics.
It's really beyond the politics. And I guess it's all about and I think there was a hashtag as well, about something 700.
Mm-hmm.
I had there are a number of people who have been up. There are government people who are on Twitter, who are on social media, responding to people who make certain comments. And I suspect that's where this whole thing actually got sensed from. So we had all these people who go basically attack people who make comments. And so I don't know, I'll be frank with you, as Richard has said, I don't know where Fix the Country actually came from. I just woke and saw people tagging me, Fix the Country, Fix the Country. And so it's true. But it's more dangerous, really, than because it's not
structured.
It's not structured. Yeah. Richard, you don't know what next people will latch on. Okay, people say Galamsey and all of that as well. So it's a bit troubling.
But Richard, you're talking about us looking at what people really mean by when they say fix the country, and you're saying that by government it means all of us. But then these are people who have problems. People are demanding better roads. People are demanding better pay. People are demanding better living and standards of living. And you were talking about us looking at the country in a different context. What do you mean by a country in a different context?
Yeah. Okay. So I think your question and maybe your stating of the fact, which you advertised earlier, whether or not is a patriotic call or a political move. I think let's look at it through those two lenses. So in the first instance, is it patriotic to say fix the country? I say it's not, right? Because you must see yourself in the fixing. All right. So when you point finger and say fix the country, then it's not your country. Is it your country? If it's your country, then you fix it too. You'll be part of fixing it. Then the second lens, is it a political move? That you can say yes, because there is somebody standing on the fringe and is telling you fix the country, and he knows you cannot fix the country singularly when he is not playing his part, which by design we ought to do. Then that tells you that it's a political move. So then the sum of this matter is that this is a political construct, even though there are genuine citizens who have certain instances of concerns that they want to raise. It's been taken over by the political lens and is running with it for political capital. I have seen on social media some budgets sent to some people to fund the demonstration. And those individuals who are...
You mean the fix the country demonstration?
Exactly. Oh, okay. And those who are supposed to fund this are political persons who are interested in the outcome of this. So that you can't convince anybody that this is a patriotic move to address the concerns of our country. And that, you're saying that even at this very juncture, if you want to fix the country in COVID, what do? Those who are saying, fix the country, are they wearing their nose masks? Are they compliant with the protocols? Yeah? Are they paying their taxes? Are they respecting all the laws on our roads? We know, I think it was in January, the last month or so, I think April or so, there's some reports about how many people died on our roads, yeah? How many people?
Almost 800.
Exactly. Are these people who are saying these things, are they compliant? Are they ensuring that they are good citizens? Are they paying or filing their taxes as they ought to be doing? You understand? So then if you want to appear in the first lens as a patriotic discussion, then we must talk about it.
But there are other issues that people are not even guilty for, if I should say. We have bad roads. Yeah. We have communities that lack hospitals. We have communities that lack schools. In this sense, what then is the role of the citizen?
So the role of the citizen is, in direct response to your question, is the responsibilities we have to pay our taxes. Okay.
Which they're doing.
I'm not sure if you would say so.
But then you can't blame one person for the fault of someone else.
If you look, as far as taxes is concerned, if we have to talk about it, it's a difficult subject matter. GRA is doing their best to collect and all of that. But the tax issue is one small issue. For example, about less than 30%, if I'm correct, of Ghanaians pay tax. The balance of us don't pay any tax. And maybe So government is pushed into a space. That's why you see a lot of taxes that come on consumption, because that is the only avenue where everybody then get roped into the tax debt. But I agree with the context you are trying to advance to say that the citizen has a legitimate concern to demand, okay, for certain things. In fact, the three primary responsibilities of a government is to provide for national defense, law and order, justice administration, and to provide certain social goods that had to do with infrastructure and the rest of it. But how does government do that? Government will accomplish those through tax, okay? And that tax money is what government used to advance and administer the country. The particular situation we are in now is a difficult global situation. So if you insert that conversation now and on the fringe as a political discussion, then it is not focused on reality, because he who is asking that question understands that if you change the circumstance and he is in charge, he can't fix it, because now you have a global, imminent, more or less devastating condition that has happened and is making all economies across the world suffer. And so there is no other way but for all of us to pinch in, and I go back to the call that all of us be citizens and figure out how we solve the problem. So if it is about the increment, which my brother was talking about the taxes that has been brought and that kicked in this month, if it's about that increment that people are incensed that fix the country, then the question is that if it is patriotic, you are saying that you'll be objective and look at it and say that under the circumstance, we are constrained and we have to fix this country by paying the tax, right? Because you were here in 2020 when at the outset of COVID, government had to take certain steps to cushion Ghanaians, right? Where did government get the money from to do that? It is our taxes, okay? That was a moment fixing the country and protecting people's lives.
So had it not been for COVID, things would have been better?
Absolutely. That was the trajectory we were on, because that's what I said, that this whole campaign is 5 years late. Because from 2017, when things started turning around up until now, because, Karen, you'll agree with me that before the MPP came into government in 2017, yeah, there was no free SHS in Ghana, but we have free SHS now, right? About some 232 factories were not operational or were not started, or there is no hope of those factories emerging anywhere in this country, but for MPP being in government from 2017 up to 2020 when we went for an election again. Things were changing. There were teachers in this country that wanted, teacher trainees that wanted allowances. Teachers who have actually served, but then their salaries after a while were cut. Okay, the allowances were cut, and they were actually summarily what would do them was cut, and they were paid only about 3 months. Book research, a lot of things were not happening in this country. And I guarantee you, if but for MPP being in power, today our economy would have been ravaged beyond repair, would have still been under IMF dictation. So we have gotten to a point where the economy would have taken off, and these questions of fix the country would not have arisen in a matter that we're talking about today. It would not have arisen but for COVID. Now, if you are patriotic, you will understand that COVID is an extenuating circumstance under which your government is trying to fix the country the best it can. And so you won't make this case fix the country, but you understand that we must all lace up our boot and fix this country. But if it's for your political interest, then it doesn't matter what is happening. You just go ahead and advance this position. And that's why I want us to differentiate and make sure that we understand the discussion to say that those who are pushing this and therefore will not understand any or will not compromise with any reasonable case that is advanced to them, those are the political people who are seeking this for their personal parochial political interest. But those who are citizens, I want to make the case to them to say that we are in a difficult situation. Our president has led us through the worst of COVID-19. The balance of the work that must be done now is all of us kicking our foot up and pushing this economy to where it will begin to produce again, so that we will get back to the growth that we need to be able to fix the rest of the outstanding problems. To the patriotic citizens, that's how we must look at it. The circumstances are tough, but we must do all we can to fix this country, and that must be together, not sitting on the fence, putting petrol or kerosene to fuel a propaganda to say, fix the country, because there is no way any country can be fixed by one individual. It's by all of us. And truly, if you call it your country, you shouldn't even be saying, fix it. You say, we will fix our country, or let's fix our country. That is the patriotic lens I want us to look at this from.
Franklin, Richard talks about all this being avoided if not for COVID. But then when COVID hit the country as at March last year, surely we knew that things were not going to be the same. At the beginning of the year, did you get a sense of communication from government to make it look like, yes, they understand, or it understands that COVID is going to cause a lot of harm, and therefore the promises or the plans for the people were going to be used in a way? Do you think so much was given or told to the people, that's why they are demanding for a lot now?
Let's be a bit brutally frank here. I mean, if I take a look at the budget statement, I see too much government intervention in our lives, too much of it. The budget at some point talks about the public-private partnerships as a means to develop post-pandemic, right? But when I look critically at some of the expenditure plans, the number of hospitals that will be put up, it is as if it is a government that wants to drive that agenda. You know, that's not prudent in a post-pandemic world. In a post-pandemic world, you want to build strategic synergies with the private sector. If you take what had happened with AstraZeneca and what have you, there's a strategic partnership that developed the vaccine. Even though you could see European government reeling under the fact that there were challenges with the vaccines and what have you, I would have thought that as the Europeans were trying to battle AstraZeneca, they quickly realized that they also needed to put in the infrastructure to ensure that a lot of these vaccines were produced or manufactured. Ours is a bit on the other side. So when you take a critical look at the budget and you look at some of these infrastructure-related projects, you can't have a country where there are over 8,300 uncompleted projects littered around. It just doesn't make sense. And it is not the time for government to say, I want to continue this project willy-nilly. It's about time government looks at it, take a critical look at it, yes, and say, look, some of these projects are beyond us. First of all, we wouldn't have to burden the citizen too much. We wouldn't have the money, especially when we don't have a good track record of keeping these facilities, sustaining them properly. I'm talking about hospitals. I do not see the point in government becoming gung-ho on this 81, is it 181 or
111?
111 hospitals. I don't get the sense that it's something that you want to do. Government involvement should be just about 30%, or maybe possibly facilitate the opportunity for private actors to come in and build. Even the roads, most of these commercial roads as well, because we borrow too much money and we don't build things to last. Look at Saglemi. I know government inherited it, but how on earth do you spend $200 million building just 5,000 houses? Now we are hearing it's about 1,005, and even up to now we haven't seen any headway. And we are going to borrow another $30-something million to continue it. That's pure waste of money. I keep saying, sell off your interest, recoup the money, and probably use it for other things. So the way I see it, and I'm sure people are not even looking at these things in detail as some of us are discussing here, I'm just looking at the reason why some of the burdens are becoming a bit too much for the government. I understand not our tax burden in terms of how much people pay. I mean, the number of people who pay taxes is not enough. But that's where government needs to be a bit more creative. The point is, I don't think for the purposes of politics, government should be the only one trying to get these projects across the country. Because if you look at some of them, it's the reason why some of the taxes have been increased. Of course, I understand we need to build, sanitation-wise, we need to build some of these, the
recycle
the e-waste,
and all of that. I'll submit government's involvement should be just about 20 or 30%. I know the other company involved is trying to raise money. So there are pockets of these that, even though the understanding is that government needs to fast track the efforts, it looks to me that we could have shut off some of the consumption related taxes if we looked at a better way of doing things. But I can imagine it's still an economy, it's still a country that rides on a lot of me politics. So I did this, I did that. Otherwise, your opponents will come after you. What did you do while you were in office? I guess it's about time we look critically into the crystal ball and decide what exactly we can achieve and what we cannot achieve. Accra Kumasi road. That road, even though most parts of it, at least 2/3 of it, looks okay, I don't think it's befitting for a country like ours. It should be dualized every part of the way. It should be privatized because it's a heavy duty road, like most other roads. I mean, if I look at the $200 million or $200 million road from the motorway or something like that, I feel these are things that the private sector can actually be asked to do. So there are no easy answers, I must admit. But I suspect part of what is happening is also politics. That's it. It was the president who said he was in a hurry. He was going to use 18 months to get us on the path to prosperity. And as Richard suggests, that is 5 years late. I think people are reminding him that he should still be in a hurry. You know, it's difficult. Like I said, it's the way you behave when you act like an Arabian prince, even in a pandemic, and then later tell people that, well, look, I'm a prince of Sokoto. I'm not an Arabian prince after all, so help me become what I'm supposed to be. I guess, in austere times, in times of austerity, people look for everything to blame. So I guess we should just take that in our strides and deal with the things we can deal with effectively. It's a difficult situation, Richard. And by the way, this notion that people are saying so because it's politics, I'm not too sure it's entirely the politics.
No, I think I acknowledge that there are
what you're trying to say is that some political actors have taken
over, because there are two spaces which we look at it. We look at it as citizens making that demand. Then in these difficult times, we make a case to them that given the circumstances. I was in America when 9/11, immediately after 9/11, and the mood of the country, was geared toward finding a solution that originates from us, because they realize something has happened to our country. What has happened to us, not quite on the scale, but perhaps even more, because it puts our very economy at risk and our lives in addition. So really, everything was on the line for us in fighting COVID. So if that is created a difficulty, and as a patriotic citizen, whether my colors are NDC or my colors are MPP, I'll be objective to see that this situation is real. And my expectations must be aligned with the circumstance and the difficulty. That citizen, we are saying, and I'm saying today, that let's look at what we can do and engage government. Where, like you were saying about government expenditure here, government expenditure there, let's engage those. If those are the issues we are saying, let's engage specific issues that hurt the forward march and the sacrifice we must make going forward. Okay? That is a citizen view. But the political view is just say that latch on anything you can latch on to advance your interest. And that is dangerous because really that individual is not providing any alternative ideas. But given the verity of the challenge we face, that individual is not giving any alternative. And per their record, they cannot do what they're asking anybody to do. So it becomes a conversation that must be texted properly and dealt with to mobilize and galvanize the country to pursue an agenda of recovery, and then relegate that to become a political discussion that will be hit left, right, center, and the actual conversation that must be had. And the learnings we must take from this difficulty to inform our character and approach to building this country going forward will not be taken, and we'll not learn that from this catastrophe that we face. So I'm just saying that it is in those true lenses that you have to see it. And if you want to advance a solution, you focus on those who are within the citizen space, clarify and educate and inform, because they will listen, they are with the program. But the politics really now is dominating. Like I told you, I've seen budgets, things sent to politicians to fund. Wow. And if that is the case, how do you say that this is about the country? It's about their political interest.
I guess there's also a lesson in humility that politicians must learn from these type of events. Back in 2015, 2016, when some of us were at the forefront of saying we're probably tired of thinking and tanking, and that we probably needed to put feet on the ground, on the streets. I'm not too sure we were asking ourselves what our contributions were. Because at the time we were quite critical that, look, there's power issues there, basically
it has to be fixed.
What have you. So now, if people are complaining, fair or foul, and then you tell them that, well, take a look at the man in the mirror. Yes, you should look at yourself and fix yourself. That type of conversation is not the one to have at this critical time. Except to say that the point about let's direct the anger properly. Let's direct it to what exactly ought to be done and fixed, and bring ideas on board. I guess it's a better way of asking for, communicating, than tell people, fix yourself. You cheat, you do this. And I said, well, yeah, I'm a vile person. I may do all the bad things that is conceivable under the sun, but I pay my tax.
Yeah.
But you came and told me that, well, I'll fix you, because the other guy wasn't fixing things properly. And I realized that part of the fixing is a bit problematic. I forgot that. I forget all the things that you are telling me to fix about myself, and say, but wait a minute, you told me you fixed
do
me.
this.
Anyway, so.
but I agree with you. The government has responsibility when you talk about people not paying taxes, for example. Government cannot blame the population, and this has been a situation we've had in this country for so long.
What's interesting, though, before you go ahead, I was just looking at the timeline. Look at the time the budget was passed, because the debate was hard. Remember we talked about these taxes, and we said, okay, people need to pay, because all of a sudden, once it kicks in, then people are like, hey, wait a minute, this is not what I had. What is it? What is responsible for that lacuna? Is it that reality just hits home?
Yeah.
I think that the conversation should have continued in a way that would have made people realize that.
Yeah. And you see, one of the interesting things is that, as I was saying, government cannot blame citizens for not being compliant and not paying their taxes and being rowdy and not complying with the laws.
On taxes, let me just chip this in. So GRA reported that they've exceeded their target. I don't know what is this with revenue agencies with exceeding targets. They set targets that are easily surmountable. So once you set the target, I was looking curiously at the statement, and I said, But they exceeded their 2020 target. So why are we being taxed to do A, B, C, D anyway? Because presumably you are doing so well.
You've got enough.
You know?
Yeah. So fine. That's a point to make. But the point is that even that it was reviewed downward, except I think they just managed to collect more. But what they are supposed to be collecting, we're not collecting. We're not collecting at 100%, right? So I'm saying that government has responsibility through the revenue agencies to collect from every Ghanaian. And I am happy about the national ID situation. So government is making those efforts to invest in ways that it can really trap and get everybody in the tax net. That is a responsibility for government.
Long away. I mean, in
I agree.
Country like ours.
No, I agree.
Saying do a flat tax regime, consumption related. Let everybody stop paying as much as we can all this income stuff, and let's have a flat tax revolution. I don't know, but that's what I think.
But you see, the challenge you have, the challenge you have is the nature of your economy. That poses a challenge as to whether or not you can do that. But the point I'm making is that really, whatever the situation is, formal, informal, the mixture of your economy, government has responsibility to be able to collect that money because government needs that tax money to be able to develop the country. So the key thing is find ways to do it. And we say that we are not collecting at optimum level. That is not the citizens' fault. Okay, it is government that must devise means to collect that. So I always say that put the pressure on GRA to be creative. And we're moving toward, thanks to this digitization and national ID situation, we are getting to a point where we can collect at we can increase and progressively cover every citizen. That is what government must do to get the needed revenue to fix what it must fix going forward. But the point is, if you are saying fix the country, and government goes to town right now and begin to do A, B, C, D, right? People will start screaming, right? And then start screaming. For example, right? There's 1,001 people driving our roads without insurance right now, okay? The 1,001 people who are driving their vehicles are due for what they call roadworthy. They have not gone to do it. If government starts tomorrow, that's government revenue right there. If it decides today, we're going to enforce that situation right now, people will say, hey, they are harassing us.
Yeah. What are the authorities?
No, I agree with you. No, I'm just saying. I'm just making the point. That goes to the heart of fix the country, right? If fix the country means that I must fix myself and help fix the country, then when my vehicle due for roadworthy, I'll go do it. If I must pay my tax, I'll pay it. Okay? If I hit electricity pole down, knowing that government invested money to put it up, when I hit it down, I find a way to remedy that situation. We are doing a whole lot of things that are actually inimical to the very thing we are calling government to do. So the question is not to make it a political, have a broad-based conversation. And last time I was talking about this, NCCE must get into the conversation. We need civic education. That awareness is critical. Elsewhere, people see their role as citizens, not only in terms of benefits, but in terms of responsibility. What am I doing? My pride as a citizen emanates from the responsibilities I execute towards my state. And by doing that, I have legitimate right to demand of my government. We are yet to get there. We need to get to the place. Yeah.
When politicians are drafting manifestos, they should have a whole chapter on this very issue you've raised. Because you read the manifestos and it's as if by dint of their own imagination and hard work, we'll build an economy move away from taxation to production.
The superhero mentality.
We'll do this. This element about asking people to be part of the process is actually silent.
No, it's not.
And somebody will tell you that you knew all of this, but in your plans, you didn't take into consideration these enforcement issues. But you should be doing that.
But that is inherent.
People, you see,
right? It's inherent.
People, you lived in the States, and you know that there's always a date by which people have to file taxes, and don't do it, there are penalties.
But the same thing here too. The same thing here.
Yeah.
So the things are there. When you begin to enforce it, and actually I blame the ruling political class for the fear and trepidation in trying to make sure that the right thing is done. Because really, these laws, when you want to enforce them to the letter, you create a situation where your electoral chances are jeopardized. And the MPP will do it to NDC, NDC will do it to MPP. But there's a need to get a convergence, to say on this issue we must agree because it affects all of us equally, to make sure that when we are fixing our country, there is some agreement on how we conduct and behave in the country. And so when people are not paying their taxes and you are enforcing it, it cannot be a collateral damage for the MPP, but it must be a political issue that we all agree. If people are not behaving properly and renewing their road tolls and things like that, and you want to enforce the law to the letter, it shouldn't be a collateral political damage to the MPP, but it must be a political issue that MDC, MPP can align together and ensure that that is done, so that it benefits you when you're in government and it benefits the country even when you're in opposition. So these are issues that we must look at with a national view, and so that helps us, move away from the extreme politicization of issues such as that should be a national discussion rather than a partisan political agenda.
And that's Richard ending today's edition of Think Tank. It's been an interesting discussion here, whether to fix the country, fix the people, or whether the people are the country. Well, my two guests have been talking about that. Well, Richard believes that by country means all of us, and Franklin also feels that government must involve the private sector more to ensure that the promises or